So we've talked a lot about the commercial outlook. Let's move on to
Yeah.
residential. I mean, if you're searching around on YouTube, you'll see plenty of people going on about what they think about property prices. Some people think it's going to crash. Some people think it's not going to crash. I'll share with you my views in a moment. But Andrew, where are you on residential property prices in 2021?
Yeah, I think this is a really great one because residential property is paid for by consumers. They are generally employees. Now, if we are seeing waves of businesses going into administration in December and in March, that will tighten the personal purse strings.
What does the government want now? It certainly doesn't want headlines about people being repossessed. That's just sort of more bad news on top of bad news. So when you start to look at the supply and demand, because price is a function at the end of the day, in a pure economics perspective, a function of supply and demand. There is very little supply coming onto the market. There is a very little demand because if you look at the constituents of demand, which is typically sort of first-time buyers, well, they've been almost frozen out the market because the lenders have increased their deposit requirements.
Do you think things like quantitative easing and taxation, because we've got the taxation catch-up, we've got the quantitative easing where the pound's effectively being devalued by writing new currency, do you think they'll have impacts on the UK economy, David?
I'm sorry to say that I think the impact will be massive, particularly this review of the capital gains tax, which because obviously when you've been effectively, I don't know, paying 80% of the wages for a big wodge of the country for what will have been about a year, somehow the books need to be balanced and you need to get that money back. And CGT is an easy target.
Tax planning, it's very difficult for us as advisors because people say these are the things that have been discussed. What shall we do? And we can only say, well, the rules as of today are this. We're pretty confident that they're not going to get any better. It's almost inevitable that taxation is going to go in a direction that people don't want it to do. So at least understand what your options are today. Let's look at some of the things that they've proposed. I think that's quite useful. So,
we would have had people building ventilators 3 years ago, possibly.
On the flip side of it, we'd have had more furlough to pay.
Well, yeah, we would have.
No, I do totally agree with what you're saying, and it is something which I have said many a time myself as well. You can probably glean that from what I've contributed, chipped in.
I think the biggest impact that concerns me is the tenant demographic. Is there going to be a change where people maybe no longer want to stay? There'll be other people that no longer be coming to the country that were before. Those are things that do concern, because if we look across our numbers in terms of nationalities, it's quite mixed. And you think, well, that means, there's a lot of people that aren't British nationals that are our tenants, and how is that going to change going forward?
People can't be doing it for small margins, because you literally could be looking at 20-25% value drop. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you have to look at that within the figures. Just as a comparative there, sense check on that, the Lehman recession had a value drop of 18% across the whole country. And the difference within the country wasn't actually the value drop.
I know you had Adam Lawrence on this, and I think back in February, I had a panic kind of call with Adam about what we thought was going to happen. And I think I remember us saying, I said to him, do you think this is the end of the Ponzi then? Is this the end of this big Ponzi where people keep doing it? And we came to the conclusion that, it's got one or two more sort of crashes left in it. And I still think that.
Who knows if there's a tier 5, and if you're supporting businesses in tier 2 and 3, presumably you've got to do a bit more in tier 4. And so there is, what did we borrow last month? 31, 32 billion, something like that. Biggest borrowing month in the history of the UK. It's sort of skated across the headlines, but it hasn't really, motivated anyone to speak out about it. There's 34 pretty good reasons to talk about it, you would think.
We've seen a tiny little virus like that, so even smaller than that, create an impact on a scale of a world war or something. It's going to take 20, 30 years to sort of pay it all off to get the deficit down on this kind of thing.
Very unexpected patterns I wouldn't expect to see. Like you're looking at some of these, we discount them because it's not adventurous enough for us, or there's not enough problems to solve, and there's too much competition for a 3-bedroom, probate that's being sold. You move in there, you spend 40 grand and put it in with an estate agent 3 months later, and all of a sudden, you're making 80, 100, 150,000 pounds, whatever the price is, whatever the margin is. There's no appetite for me to do something like that, because these hands are very, very, they're not painting, decorating hands.
Shortage of property, shortage of stock. I think landlords are exiting when they can, because it's very difficult. We've got some golden handcuffs around us. I don't know if they're golden, actually. 6 months notice to get your property back, and whether that even would then happen in 6 months. But the tenancies that may be ending now, landlords could be looking at, do I still want to be a landlord? Do I want to take that capital out and put it somewhere else, especially if I can't see any capital gains in the next 10 years, and I can put it into ETFs or other financial instruments where I can get 4.5%, 4%.
Again, there needs to be a look at and a repurposing of the whole of that particular type of property, which is another demographic of developer.
Yes. So we've talked a little about PD, but there's also these planning reforms they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Where any green space near you will be built on by the likes of myself and Andrew. So what do you think about these planning reforms? Good news or bad news?
I think it's good
Coming or not
news.
coming?
Well, I sort of look at it and go, it goes back to Boris, who wants to enable the marketplace to decide the use of space.
Maybe we'll see you in 12 weeks' time for a look at the new, obviously at your new abode and your views on the market in the meantime.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully I'll try and stay on topic and not tangent myself into 50 different directions. But yes, I'm looking forward to it, and thank you very much for inviting me.